Hello, everyone. Welcome to the World Responsible Leaders Dialogue Rise Up Show. And today we have very special guest, Rebecca, and she is on Fintech4Good Leadership Council. And of course, she has an amazing experience working with many other reputable organizations. And so without further ado, I'd like to have Rebecca to just briefly introduce herself. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. It's just such an honor to be here. I'm Rebekah Dopp. I work at Google in the diversity organization, and I'm the executive producer of the Search for Racial Equity. I also am the founder and the chair of Exponent, which is a gender equity accelerator, 501c3 outside of Google, but it did start inside of Google as an incubator. And I'm really just proud of the work that we're doing there as well.
Thank you very much. So yeah, probably, that's the start from your show in Google. And, maybe you can just share a little bit about the background, how did it started and what is the mission of the show. And, so far that's what have been discussed. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the Search for Racial Equity started back in June, and several of us got together with the reckoning that's currently going on in the United States and really wanted to put something out there and create a platform for conversation and dialogue and really just helping one another understand how to move forward. So we created the Search for Racial Equity. It was originally going to be an 8-part series, and in fact, it's now going to go on into perpetuity because it was just so overwhelmingly positively received with the conversations and the dialogues that are happening with the thought leaders that are in our world today. So we're really proud of the series, and right now, during this moment in time, not only in the United States, but globally, these conversations are more important than ever. So we're just really proud of the series altogether.
Absolutely. And during the time of pandemic and also, during the time there are so many uncertain issues around us. And I think conversation is really one of the way to just provide clarity and get the tough questions answered by leaders who have been there, done that, and also bring the right message to the right audience. And this is also our effort to try to just have you to share your experience and also get your insight to inspire more leaders in the space. And probably we also want to just understand a little bit about the accelerator program. That's how did it start from in Google, and as of now, that's what's your focus?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the reasons we started Search for Racial Equity, and one of the reasons why I'm leading that effort at Google, is because we were going to launch Exponent externally when the pandemic started and when some of the conversations with the racial reckoning started occurring in the United States. And we paused the launch of Exponent because it is such important dialogue to happen. The initiative is something that is so powerful today. However, in that moment, it was most important for those of us who have a platform to mute ourselves, to really lift up the voices and some of the dialogue in the racial equity space. So at any rate, we have since launched Exponent, and our partners include Bloomberg and BBC and NASDAQ alongside of Google. And what we do is we take initiatives that are already having really positive impact, and we amplify those efforts, and we really put all of our energy behind scaling them. And so an example might be BBC's 50/50 project, which has seen really incredible impact with just tracking. So BBC's 50/50 project tracks men and women in front of the camera. And just by tracking and showing the data and reporting back, they have increased the vast majority of their content to be gender parity, which is really important, because if you can't see it, you can't be it, right? As Gina Davis says. So that's really important. We are working with the BBC to amplify that and bring that to other organizations, to other sectors, to other industries. And so we take a already successful initiative and we incubate it and we accelerate it and scale it and help scale it globally.
Yeah, and you mentioned a number of very reputable brands in the space, and we all know that it's both difficult and easy to work with other brands, and so how was your experience, and how did you manage to bring everyone together to work on this important initiative?
Yeah, it's a really important question, because one of the things that sets Exponent apart is the ability to navigate sometimes these very complex waters, right? And so part of it is bringing everyone together. Part of it is really meeting everyone exactly where they are. And not every brand, not every individual has the flexibility, frankly, to whether it's to partner or to lean in certain ways. And so we meet everybody exactly where they are. And so part of the reason we took Exponent and moved it from an incubator inside of Google and moved it outside of Google and spun it out outside of Google is so that we could develop those partnerships outside of Google, so that we could come together in a really on a neutral platform, on a neutral playing field, and say, okay, Google, what are you bringing to the table? What can you help to amplify some of these initiatives? NASDAQ, what can you bring to the table? BBC, what can you bring to the table? Bloomberg, what can you bring to the table? And so each one of our partnerships is actually very tailored for that specific partner. And my background in media has really helped us bring that together, because one of the challenging factors that we discovered as we started to scratch the surface in this work is that there are already so many incredible organizations that are doing really great work here. But because of the parameters that are put on them, whether it's governments putting regulations on intergovernmental organizations, right? So we partner with the UN, we partner with UNESCO, but there are very specific guidelines that they need to adhere to. BBC is the public broadcasting for the UK, so they have very specific guidelines. So we work with each partner and thread the needle to make sure that they are meeting those guidelines, and yet still can add a tremendous amount of value, bringing their superpower to the table. So it's complex and it's certainly not easy, but it is worth it to bring these organizations together to really lean on one another and amplify one another's work.
Yeah, and the Accelerator has a very specific focus. That's gender diversity, and why do Google and other partners care about this issue?
I mean, why it is when we're talking about issues of diversity, the one thread that runs no matter where you are in the world is gender, right? And so diversity looks different whether you're sitting where I am in the United States, or whether you are in the Middle East, or you're in China, or you're in Africa. Diversity is different, and we need to figure out how to tailor those efforts. But the one common element throughout all of those things globally is gender, and gender bringing, so gender is the core and it's the foundation for all of the other conversations. And intersectionality is so critically important when you're talking about diversity, because my gender does not define who I am, but it is one of the elements that make up what I am bringing to the table and make up my point of view. I also can't speak on behalf of all women, right? So, but gender, when we're talking about diversity efforts and when we're talking about equitable representation, gender is the underlying core for everything when you're talking on the global stage.
Yeah, and I remember, when I was watching the debate, organized by World Economic Forum, that the Prime Minister of Finland was asked, as a young woman who is in her 30s, and how can you, and also how can the country, take care of the gender equality issue so well. And her answer was, it did happen within a day. It happened, from many years, pushing, from the union, and also, from all the government public sector, and then make sure that, gender balance has been translated into the, organizational structure, and also even the state, the shareholder mandate, so that, many are forced to look into this and then to incorporate that into their organizational structure, and then it becoming normality, new norm, and nobody even think it's an issue there anymore, because it's just so normal. And for the accelerator, are you incubating and accelerating initiative, or startup, or it's the individual? So who is your changing agent, and how are you supposing to empower them?
Yeah, so all of the above. We have at Exponent a round table of organizations, the ones that I named: NASDAQ, Bloomberg, BBC, and Google. We also have a council of individuals who have already done just incredible work in this space, that are leaning in certain ways. And so each of the council members really has a specific element of the conversation that they focus on. So one of the members of the council really is interested in board diversity, in corporate board diversity. And it's actually something I'm very interested as well. So she leans into that, is doing everything that she can to really surface initiatives that move the needle in that way. Another individual really focuses on policymakers and getting more women in place where policy decisions are made. And so the collective, this organization Exponent, works together with each of these individuals who focuses on specific initiatives. And so there are different areas. We amplify the efforts of each of the council members that come to the table and have their specific initiatives. We amplify the roundtable initiative. So when NASDAQ has a gender equity initiative that they are moving forward, Exponent works to amplify those efforts and lean in and try to scale it wherever we can, and bringing together the powers of the collective. But then also Exponent taps certain initiatives to really bring all of our powers together to lift them up. So I mentioned the BBC's 50/50 project. We are also working in the United States with media organizations to identify gender in media and increase representation within the next 5 years. And we are working through the Google News Initiative and through our other partners to get a data set and a dashboard in the hands of every media outlet and every content creator in the United States, and educate them on the powers and frankly the benefits of gender representation and how that works. And just through, and we've seen through the BBC's 50/50 project, just through putting the data in the hands of the people who are creating content, we believe we are going to increase that representation, and it will have ripple effects across all media. So we are leaning in and taking each initiative that we partner with, each organization that we partner with, each individual that we partner with, and taking the best of all of the powers of the collective and really working to scale and amplify the efforts of each of those individuals, organizations, and initiatives.
Yeah, and I think this is a very powerful method. And by bringing individuals who share the mission together, and then to have a right approach, and based on the success of the initiative, and then amplify with the more brand. And I think that approach itself has a lot of power. And during the process, what kind of initiative you see have the best result or potential and so far? And one particular focus Fintech4Good has is really around the technology, and one similar type of effort that we started together with the FinExpo is in the fintech industry, and we are looking at the performance of fintech industry in terms of the gender equality, and basically the next result will be a report or an index of fintech gender index, basically to looking at the fintech industry and whether which organization are doing better than other organization in terms of the gender equality, and provide that index and then giving that as a push. And in your current work, that's which sector or which industry that you see there are some interesting initiatives, or some industry that you need to push harder than other industries?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I think that it's really important. The work that you're doing is so powerful, and money has the ability to leverage all sorts of behavior, right? And so I think it's critically important that we move the needle in the finance sector, and it is really important to do what you're doing, which is power it through data, run the reports, show the information, and then have powerful, data-driven, impactful efforts. Because the reality of it is the numbers haven't changed much, and we've had the data and we have the information. What is actually going to move the needle? And my hypothesis is you need to put that information in the hands of the of the top of the decision-making tree, right? So that's in the boardroom, that's in the CEO suite, and not only put the data in their hands, but then also put the tools in place, because it's going to take a long time, step by step, to actually make significant progress and significant change. And it starts with the data, and that we don't have to overcomplicate that. The data says what the data says, right? So we don't have to overcomplicate that. The information is there, and then it's a matter of putting the information in the hands of the people who are making the decisions, so that there is equitable representation. And then it's being very thoughtful. And to your point, and I think it's a great example. What has happened in New Zealand has happened over time, but it has been thoughtful. And now it's not even part of the conversation, right? And that is the goal. The goal is to have it not be a part of the conversation, because it's just the best wins out, the best decision maker wins out, the best impactful initiatives win out. It has nothing to do with all of these other dimensions of diversity that really only lend benefit to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, and whether that's in the private sector and making money. All of the data shows that you make more money when you pay attention to diversity, and and in social and in civil aspects of our world and of our society. It just is the right thing to do across the board. And so we need to start with data, and we need to make it simple. We don't need to overcomplicate things, but the decisions have to be made at the utmost powerful levels of influence, and equitable representation is the start there at the top.
Absolutely. And, yeah, I think, what you said is extremely important and also relevant to, our current discussion with different initiatives. One initiative is, coming out of the work from the United Nations Secretary General Digital Financing for SDG Task Force. And, the task force concluded that digital innovation just creates tremendous opportunity for the world for SDG, and but there are a lot of gaps, to make a digital innovation or digitalization or realize the potential or the power of digitalization. One of the gaps is really around data. So that's why, the UN Fintech4Good, Refinitiv, and World Economic Forum, many of us are just coming together and launched an initiative called the Future of Sustainable Data Alliance. And where that alliance is really trying to just solve those, problem, what data is needed, how to just define the data structure, and what are tools which we can make available based on data, and then to just empower the decision makers to just move the investments to SDG focused projects or industry or initiatives. So I think that's what you mentioned around using data first, but don't stop in data, and move beyond data, and then try to just have the decision makers to take action. I think that's also extremely important. And one part of that is I think media, where that's now that's when we just think about if the data is ready, the tools are there, the decisions are taken, and how can we just get everyone, not the decision maker, that one single person, to get a single organization take action. I think where that's the communication piece and the media in general becoming very, very important in that effort. And you have a tremendous background in the media side, that and from the media perspective, and how does media play a role here, and then to just amplify all this potential strong and powerful initiative?
Yeah, listen, absolutely. Media is a megaphone. And there are so many, we talked about this before, there are so many people doing incredible work, but if you can't get the word out there, then other people can't join. And so media is actually critical to the success and to the sustainability of all of our efforts, right? Because in just short, small storytelling, we can really magnify and amplify those voices. So I think media is a critical component. So you start with the data, and then you have stories to tell, and then the media helps you get those stories out there. And it's so important. And the other thing that media does is it not only amplifies the very incredible and necessary work that people are doing in this space, it also highlights those who aren't stepping up, who see the data, who understand the benefits of it, and there's still no movement. And so media helps really amplify the message, but then also magnify where are these opportunities where we can really do a better job. And so media is a critical component to our strategy. And it's one of the reasons why we have media outlets that are a part of our consortium and really coming together, because it is so important. In essence, all of the work that we do is magnified by media and by storytelling and by getting the information in people's hands. And one other element that we've talked around, but I want to say very specifically, is especially across the globe, getting data in people's hands is critically important. It's also critically important to get connectivity in the hands of every individual on the planet. We are not utilizing the resources necessary by not connecting individuals because they don't have access to high-speed data so that they can connect and bring their gifts and their talents to the world. So I think that there are these very simple, very logical elements that we need to start with, but then we need to demand impact, and we need to demand that people actually take action, as opposed to sitting with the data and opining on why we should continue to focus on this.
Yeah, and I really like the word demand there, because a lot of conversation just end with another conversation, and I think demand for action is really one of the thing where that media play a huge role, and basically moving the needles, and by asking the right question, and by make the right demand. Yeah, and one of the interesting thing is that I graduated from the one of the media college from China, and many of my classmates who just are in their 40s and looking at a different potential, and now look at their career, that from the job they are doing, they are already either on top of the organizational structure, or they are thinking about what is my personal legacy. But many of them have a strong media background, and this is all what they are doing in the past, and then they are really looking at how I can just convert my expertise and a network into something more meaningful. And you are a good example of that. And how can they start, and where do they start if they want to just do more than what they're doing now?
Yeah, so I love this question. When I was first starting out in my career, I started to volunteer at different not-for-profits, and I eventually was on the board of several not-for-profits. And one of the things that I was really focused on is, how can I bring something to the table that is incredibly valuable that others can't? And at the time, I didn't have any money, right? I was just starting out, and I was working really hard trying to develop my career, and I didn't have a ton of money to give to these nonprofits, but I had my time. And how is my time best spent? And so I focused at the time on organizations that were focused on women and children, and protecting the women and children of our community. And my community at the time, and still is New York City, and really leaning in and focusing on that. But what I did was brought the expertise that I had developed in my career to really amplify those messages. And so it was something different that I was bringing to the table. And ultimately, I think that's where everyone should really start, because everyone is bringing a different portfolio of experiences, portfolio of expertise to the table. And in anything, whether it's really working hard to try to give back, and that's what we're talking about, or even in your own career, what is specific to you that you are bringing to the table that can really add a special sauce to whatever the collective, team is working on. And I think that is critical for young people, and for those of us who are going through our career, to think through, what can I add of value that is actually unique, because that is so much more valuable than me going in and trying to do something that I don't have any experience in. And so you need to start with where you are. You need to start with what your experiences are, and then you need to start with what you're truly passionate about. And that could be, it could be, I'm truly passionate about drawing, and so I'm going to sit and teach an art class. Or that could be, I am actually really passionate about media. I'm really passionate about products. I'm really passionate about digital transformation. So how can I bring those things to the not-for-profit space? And that's really what we've come to do with Exponent. It's everyone is coming to the table, and we have just such, I'm so humbled. I'm so humbled to be surrounded by such incredible people, and every individual is bringing to the table something that's very unique and very different. And we are all coming together as experts in our own field, and we're able to ultimately lift these organizations up, lift these initiatives up with the best in class of people in finance, people in media like myself, people that have spent their entire careers in the not-for-profit space, figuring out how to work through that. People that are coming to the table with decades of experience in intergovernmental organizations and knowing how to get the most out of the UN agencies, etc. Bringing all of these people together and everyone leaning in with their own expertise, I just think is vital to a really impactful collective that is working together for one goal. And that one goal is to have gender equity in 5 years. And that's, and we aren't stopping. And yeah, I'm glad you like the word demand. I like the word as well. We have to demand nothing less than progress. And so it's not just talking, it's actually impact. And if there is no impact, then why is that the case? And we need to drive that forward.
Yeah, and I think a couple of keywords come out of this conversation. One is that you have to know your passion, and then your passion, you can add a unique value to your passion to the table, and where that what you can bring uniquely. And of course, that's you probably cannot just make the impact yourself. You have to really just be able to leverage others, and also identify the right partner who want to just work with you. And lastly, that you have a mission, and where that you can just bring a shared vision among the group, that everyone will be on the same page at their unique value. Then just to really work toward the mission. And I think that probably it gave this is the recipe probably many could just use in their entrepreneurial journey. And now that when we're talking about this, the next stage in many people's life, and I think gender again play a very important role. And where if you're just looking at the venture capital side, that's women entrepreneurs are disadvantaged in terms of getting funded, and in the tax space where that women are less represented in the tax space and all that, so my question to you is that no matter you want to start a entrepreneurial journey, or you want to start a nonprofit impact journey, or you want just do something which is or working in an organization, what role does gender play? And especially in the entrepreneurial world, that's and what is the situation now, and what changes are needed to happen?
Yeah, I mean, listen, only 2.2% of venture capital funds go to female founders, right? That is ridiculous. And it shows that these firms aren't operating in their own best interest, right? So that in and of itself is absurd. And listen, I actually don't think gender plays a role in anything. I think the best should win out. But the reality of it is, if only 2.2% of venture capitalist funds are going to women, that needs to be addressed, because we are not all operating in our own best interests, and that is not sustainable, frankly. And so that part of the conversation, it's why is that? What is causing that discrepancy in access? Because ultimately, that just shows that women aren't getting in the room. They are not getting access to the decision makers that can put those funds in the hands of people that are making a real difference. And so, I first of all, I think that we should all be able to talk about these things, and it shouldn't matter what my gender is, what my background is. We should all be able to talk about these things in a very pragmatic way, and talking about what makes the most sense for success and what makes the most sense for impact. And ultimately, that means that you need to have diversity of thought, and that means you need to have diversity in background, and something's broken in that system because you don't have those things. Right. And so I think we need to start there. The role is not necessarily putting women forward at, no, let's put the best people forward and get the best people to have access to those things that can make a big difference in the impact. And what does that mean? And I think that's the conversation, because too oftentimes we get lost in this battle of words of, well, why should we have to think about that? I just select the best person. How is it possible that you select the best person, but the best people might not be able to get into the room? So how is that possible? So we need to start there. We need to talk through what the obstacles are and the barriers of entry to the rooms where equitable representation is necessary for all of us and for our society to move forward in the most beneficial way.
Yeah, and definitely, you and also, Exponent is, I think more from the top, and see, how we can just change the environment, or to just empower, more organizations and taking actions to just make it happen, and, create this equality world. And if, female just started, a career, and no matter from the entrepreneurial or just a job in an organization, and what's your suggestion for them to navigate their journey properly, and with experience, or at least enjoyable experience, where that and then they can have a better opportunity or chance to just realize their dream?
Yeah, so my focus and Exponent's focus is on where the decisions happen and at the top, because otherwise things just aren't going to change. So that is true. That said, I was at one time a young woman trying to figure it out, and for anyone, I would say, it's not just women, but anyone across the board. You need to find someone who is your champion. And so not just a mentor, you need to have a board of advisors from different backgrounds that can help you and champion you and put you in those rooms. And for myself, when I was very junior at HBO, I had a very senior woman that sent me into rooms that I did not belong in. And she sent me as her proxy. And it was a real incredible journey and learning experience for me. But she entrusted in me that that I would represent her in the way that I should. I also then was exposed to the room, right? The room where the decisions are made, how it all happens. There's no sort of mystery behind it. It's similar to all of the other rooms, but having that early on in my career was really critical to me understanding how then to get to the next spot. So for me, the number one piece of advice that I would give to any young person that really wants to make a difference is you have to go and find an organization that really understands the special value that you're bringing to the table. But most critically, the person that you work for needs to understand that value and needs to lift you up, and needs to put you in rooms that you're not ready to be in yet, needs to champion you, needs to, when you are not in the room, be talking about all of your qualifications. And if you have not yet found that champion, then you need to work together to get yourself to a place where you find that champion, because also it helps each of us if we are surrounding ourselves with people that believe in us, and then we believe more in ourselves, and that's critical, especially in the very beginning of your journey, right? In any journey, you have to have a board of advisors and champions, not just mentors, but champions that will champion your efforts, that will protect you and give you air cover when you make a mistake, because if you're taking risks, you will, and really help to move it forward. We cannot do this alone. None of us, no individual can do it alone. You have to have a team. You have to come to the table and work as hard as you can with your own individual assets. But then you always have to have someone that is more senior than you, that is really working to lift you up. And if you don't have that, then keep looking.
Yeah, and I think that's really critical when you were talking, although, my question was for others, but then it actually reflect back to my own journey a lot, and, how many people in my life and who empowered me to just, learn more, and also just, deep harder into myself and say that, you can do more than this. And, I think that's definitely a very, very powerful, statement. I think that's not only, for people who started, but also for people who lead, and
Yeah.
If you are, on leadership position, and actually, yes, try to a lot of people ask about, what does leadership mean and all that. I think that's to empower, people, and give them opportunity where that's, they even themselves probably don't think it's the opportunity belong to them, but then you entrust that. And I think that's powerful leadership, and that's, I think apply, almost in all organizations and all positions. And my next question is, around what's going on here, because by the end of the day, that we shouldn't only just look after ourselves, and even because our best interest is also blended into the bigger environment where we live in. And now that's both of us are in the United States, and we see the pandemic, we see the Black Lives Matter, so we see there are I see, probably this is a good time for us to look around and see, what's going on here, and how each one of us can just contribute to this bigger movement. What's your thought?
Yeah, it is such a difficult time for all of us, and the marginalized communities are disproportionately negatively impacted by the racial reckoning that we're having, that they're disproportionately affected by the global pandemic. And I believe women, especially women of color, are going to be disproportionately part of the solution, and really help to pull us out of this really challenging time that is bringing us all together in a way that's necessary, because we failed to come together in the past. And so I think that this, the fact that we have these conversations over video conference instead of in person for safety reasons, the fact that we have to take tests, the fact that right now people are have the time to sit back and reflect on some of the real truths of of the country's history, of what's going on in what's going on to Black and brown bodies, what is happening. All of these conversations are coming together at the same time. And I think that it is a real opportunity for us to get together and not have these disparate arms of let me only talk about gender right now. Let me only talk about this other dimension of diversity. Let's talk about it all, because any individual who has experienced an injustice, that reflects on the entire society, and we all need to step up against it and stand alongside those who are fighting those injustices. And so all of these things fit together. There are transferable themes, and all of the efforts that we're making in each one of these areas are transferable and help lift one another up. And so I think it's critically important that we have these conversations and that we don't shy away from these conversations. And one of the things that has come up a lot, because we are all in the middle of a global pandemic, and because we are all in various stages of trauma, frankly, and trauma response, is there's a real fatigue about talking about these things, about talking about diversity, about talking about what's going on in our country. And I would argue that we need to fight through that fatigue, because until these problems are solved, it doesn't make any sense for us to turn away. This is the time that we really need to step up and stand together to find the solutions. And again, I think those that are disproportionately impacted by everything that's going on in the world are going to be disproportionately part of the solution. And we need to work together to amplify one another and stand together to frankly heal our nation and heal the world from what we're suffering from right now.
Yeah, and what you said reminded me an article that I read actually today from Ford Foundation. Darren was talking about moral leadership, and during the time of crisis, and the moral leadership is really really critical, because people who probably are demanding more and demand change, and demand being treated equally, and also demand on behalf of the environment to just there's so many and because only when crisis attack, and then everyone who are attacked and just started to just really cry out and say that things need to be done differently to us, to also the environment, and we need to have a different path. When we talk about different paths, and maybe this will be the closing question, and about way forward, and for yourself, and in the next few months or even years ahead, and what would be your next steps, and in your personal journey, and also for the bigger picture, that's we see digital innovation is happening. We see that more organizations are working on gender equality, and just the last month we have the New York climate change week. Many more organizations are making the climate commitment, taking right actions. Then digital technology also empower us to just fill the data gap, fill many gaps which exist. So for yourself, and what's your next step? And yeah.
I am filled with a sense of hope, because these conversations are happening, at least in from my perspective, they're happening quite a great deal more than they were. And they're happening in a way that's much deeper than they were in the past. And I think a variety of factors contribute to that. But we are having the conversations, and people are really paying attention and wanting to make a change. And the younger generations that are coming up are so filled with a sense of responsibility, not only for themselves, but for the community and those around them. So I have a real sense of hope. And over the next several years, I think I see the world coming together, and the world's coming together community by community, communities coming together and working together, and everybody doing what they can and lending their own special superpower to the conversation, to the dialogue, to whatever it is that they're passionate about. And this is a real positive, and it's something that I certainly haven't seen to this magnitude in my lifetime, where yes, the problems are tough, but I come from a world where nothing is impossible, right? And so yes, these are tough, but as we come together, as we work together, as we partner and really bring forth the best of one another, we've got this, and we could solve these problems and make a better world for everyone.
Thank you. And this is one of the very emotional conversation I had. And then not only, we are talking about, your personal journey and your view about, many important things happening around us. And, during the conversation, it also brought back, my own experience. And so it's a really, really, a very emotional conversation. I really appreciate, the time, and also thank you for the wonderful experience. And of course that, this will be one of the many conversations we'll have. And I'm very happy that, you're sitting on the advisory board of Fintech4Good and helping us, guide us in the past. And I'm also looking forward to working more closely with you in the future, and, on the gender equality related issues, but also just more broadly, and empower every individual and who are underserved, underrepresented, and then bring more hope into their life and into the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do and for Fintech4Good.
Thank you.